Okay, I think I'm ready. Been gathering supplies. I have a whole bunch of things that need to be repotted. I was working on a vlog, and then in the vlog was like, oh, I need to repot, there's rearranging that need to be happening. I didn't want to do that until I repotted the plants. First thing I need to do is this Parlor palm. Just looking lovely, isn't it? Yeah, well, it's looked better. It doesn't look too bad considering what I've put it through recently and what the plant has been through recently. We just need to clean this one up, talk about the Parlor palms and some of the things that have been going on with this one. Yeah. So, this plant right here, I have had for many, many years. Look at all the trunkage on there. Isn't that amazing? And just considering that you buy these things as just little bitty, like, $5 plants. And then, you know, within, well, it's been quite a while. This is like 6, 7 years probably. But you get all this great growth out of them. Yes, I know. I'm handling it in a rough manner. So here's what's been going on with this one, though. This plant is a favorite to the mealybugs. I've just moved the plants inside. Don't know when the video will be out. But recently, I moved all my plants inside. This one right here was covered in mealybugs. That's not usually an issue I have outdoors. Usually that's something I deal with towards the end of the indoor growing season. So say around, I don't know, March into April. That's when they start to show up. But this, I don't know. I don't know what happened. It had mealybugs on it. So I pulled it from its container. I blasted it off and then I treated it. It did a soil drench and I waited a week and I did it again. And now it needs some cleanup because some of the foliage didn't respond all that well to being moved around the way it was, somewhat aggressively. I don't know what the audio is going to be like. The fan for the heater's on. I can't turn it off. It won't turn off all the way. I tried. It won't go off. If I do turn it off, then the house might burn down. I'm waiting for this to get replaced. You can't turn the fan off of it because the heating element doesn't want to turn off, so you have to go downstairs and flip the breaker. It's a whole thing. We're just going to push through it. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. Hopefully it's not. So, I pulled it, gave it a heavy flush, a soil drench. I use a systemic on it, which I don't do that often outdoors. Typically, I hold on to doing systemics when things are inside and I don't have to worry so much about the runoff. You know, it's not that great of a thing to do for the environment, but it was necessary because it was covered and it worked very, very well. For the most part, I'm still seeing some things we're going to need to clean off of here. The main thing I need to tackle first, though, is to get this plant repotted. So I have an all-purpose potting mix over here that I had to leave in here overnight because the last batch of potting soil I ordered came in very moist and heavy and just chunky and not what I prefer. But luckily, it dried out nicely. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get a potting mix and the bag feels heavy and wet. You probably shouldn't use it, but I had ordered it. There really wasn't much I could do about it. I wasn't going to send it all back. Not all like 14, 15 bags, however many was there. It was a lot. I think it was a half pallet. So I'm stuck with it. It managed to dry out nicely. I am going to add some sand into this. Not necessarily needing it for a Parlor palm. Parlor palms, these are pretty easy palms for indoors, okay? You don't need to do a lot with them. They are not demanding of a lot of light. They're not that peak out water once they're to a certain size. When they're smaller, you really want to make sure they stay consistently moist. But when they get bigger, like this guy, they can dry out for a while. Pretty sturdy plants once they've reached a certain size. But yeah, when they're smaller, you need to be sure they don't dry out for very long. That's when they'll shrivel up and throw all types of tantrums. I'm only adding the sand because one, I have so much of it. I have a barrel full of the sand over there. And I do want to help the drainage somewhat on this mix just because it's holding on to moisture a smidge longer than I would prefer it to. It's just a wet batch, which like I said, typically wouldn't use that, but it doesn't have any bad odor. If there were a bad odor, 100% would not use it, but it's dried out nicely and it's not holding too much of its shape. Falls apart in your hand. That's what you want to see with a good draining soil. Okay, I'm going to say that's, whoa, let's spill it everywhere. I'm going to say that that's good. Don't want to put too much of the sand in here because I have some other plants I want to pot up after this one that are going to want that extra moisture, some ferns and things. This should be good. Like I said, you do that, the crumble test, It's looking okay. So I'm not bumping this into a larger container. I'm just putting it back to the same pot that it was in. Oh, decided to turn yourself off. I have to keep an eye on that. It does that sometimes, but only when I'm around. I set it to turn off a few minutes ago. It was in a cool off mode. I just thought that wasn't working, but apparently it is. All right, so here's that pot. The nice Talavera container. I've had this one for a long time. You can see what's gone on here. Pardon the shadows. It's hard in the grow space because I have lights everywhere, and they're using up all the electricity for lights that I would normally use for filming. And it's hard to move things around to get rid of the shadows, but you get it. You see how low this is? Somehow, over the years, just that much soil disappeared. How? I don't know. That just happens sometimes. I have a croton outside that is about a foot down in its container. How? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's just what plants do. Well, it's partially with the croton, I think, because I put very, very, very large drainage holes in the bottom. Because, you know, a croton sitting in wet, soggy soil, if that were to happen, were to get overwatered, or if the hole were to get clogged with roots, that's a kiss of death for a croton. I said kiss. I meant kiss. You knew that, right? Okay, bad news, the heater's back on. Good news, I found another light. It's still some shadows. It's fine. I know y'all aren't going to be all that picky about some shadows in the videos. This Parlor palm, just Parlor palms in general, such great house plants. Like I said, they're fairly versatile once you've had them for a while. If you are one to get really bothered and upset, however, by brown tips, then this probably is not the plant for you. Take some of that soil out of there. Yeah, it's just the nature of the beast with palms that have this really thin, very delicate pinnae, what you call these, the pinnae on the pinnate. Yeah, it's just part of it. You got to deal with it. They are very prone to little bacterial and fungal spots and things like that. I have to clean mine up about twice a year. I actually think I had it right with the soil level that last time, but I like for them to be lower in the container so that I can water them and not have water and soil spilling out. That, and I think I might end up needing to top dress this, which that's not the best thing to do when you have bugs, but it would help stabilize some of these trunks. So this is gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna be cleaning this whole plant up anyway, so that was gonna go. It was gonna get cut. That's not what we wanna keep. And I have accidentally misled you. Cleaning up the plant should really be done before the repot. And just because, okay, I should explain why. You probably wanna know why. Here's why. There might still be pests and things lingering in between some of these branches or even on some of these leaves. And the mealybugs will harbor over. They'll hang out inside the potting mix and up against the sides of the pot. I find them fairly frequently. So that's something to keep in mind, right? Want to make sure everything's cleaned out because all this stuff, all the bugs, they're just going to fall out of here and go down to that soil. Now, when I treat a plant with a systemic, I try and go in and do a prune. Because not all plants, with some exceptions, but a lot of plants, I should say, just don't have the vigor to take that systemic up from that potting mix and get it into the foliage where they're being chewed on quickly enough to really eradicate a problem. So it's something I do, I treat with a systemic, and then I spray, and then I prune, and then I usually spray again. And then about a month later, I probably treat again with a systemic. And then the problem still persists, and I end up making the same video a year later. So, I don't know, don't take my advice. Because doing things the gentle way isn't always the best. Not that systemics are by any means gentle. They're really not. But I try and use the most gentle ones that I can find. I could probably go something more harsh. Really could even put these into a bug bomb. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to keep spraying this. Look at that. If you can. If you can even, can you see it? Well, you see those white dots? Although I think those are dead. I think those are dead mealybugs, so that's good. It's just part of it. Once you have mealybugs, if you don't get rid of them immediately, you will have them for a long time. That's something I've learned with gardening. They are tricky to get rid of if you have a lot of plants. But this does help. Doing a big prune, that makes it easier to continue spraying, and actually be able to get to all the different crevices inside of the plant when you have all that foliage, it's hard to get the spray in there. You don't want to over prune either though. If you over prune, then you can weaken the plant. Stronger plants generally have better resistance towards pests. Now, there's not a lot of resistance you can get towards mealybugs except just being resilient enough so that it won't just kill you, right? That they can survive having to be treated for the mealybugs. And yeah, occasionally this one does get spider mites, but those have never been a problem to get rid of. It's actually usually very simple to get the spider mites off of this one. So that's nice. It's not surprising. This is that thin foliage like I was talking about. We all know the mealybugs and the spider mites just love that thin foliage. You can see in here, you get into these crevices. Again, harder to show up. You see all that? Those are spots where the sprays just aren't hitting. And you can see this is brown too. It's browned up over time. So that systemic probably isn't even being transported into this growth because it's browning from the base. Right now this plant is pulling things back into the plant, not pushing new stuff out into it. So some of this prune was really just aesthetics. Some of the foliage just wasn't looking great. These grow fast enough that like I said, about twice a year I have to come in and clean some stuff out. And I'm also trying to make sure that I thin it out from the inside because of what I was saying before about wanting to make sure that the sprays can get in here and get into all these little pockets and divots inside the plants. Otherwise, the problem is just going to keep going on. You really got to get in there and just drench all these different nooks and crannies. All right, I think that's pretty good. So something I did wrong here. I should have done this rejuvenation, we'll call it a rejuvenation, cleanup prune, before I sprayed the plant the first time. There was a lot going on when I pulled the plants to move them inside. I was getting ready for a trip. I don't travel in October. It's not a smart time of year for me to be traveling to have all these plants and everything to take care of, but it just had to be done. So I was moving my plants inside and pulled this one from where it was in the backyard and saw the mealybugs. I was like, nope. And I went ahead and I just lifted it from its pot, grabbed the spray, sprayed it down, left it, and then came back about 5-6 days later, sprayed it again, and moved on. I was dealing with all kinds of other things to get ready to be out of town. A lot of prep that goes into place to be able to travel around here. That was a wooden stake. It wasn't the palm trunk. It was just the stake right here. The palm tree's okay. I don't know if you heard that crack. It wasn't the palm tree. It was just that stake. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. It would make more sense to do that spray right after you've done all this pruning. Whereas now it's going to need an additional spray, and that's never ideal, right? I like to keep spraying to a minimum, but you gotta do what you gotta do. You can't just let the mealybugs go on and do their thing. But at the very least, I can manage it. This palm isn't usually that prone to an infestation this bad. This is the worst one it's ever had. Normally, it's not a big deal. It'll have some pests on it every now and then, but typically a little bit of spraying and some pruning and they're gone. This one is taking multiple attempts, but again, that's because I really didn't handle this the way I should have when the pests first showed up on here. If I had, then well, wouldn't be having any of these problems. I know it's not perfectly centered, but the root ball centered. The plant's just, it's wonky. So that's as good as it's gonna get. There it is. There's everything I pruned off of it. I know it seems like a lot, but it will flush back out with all of the same growth within about 6 weeks. Even though they're not that fast, and you have all those trunks, they fill back out so quickly. There weren't mealybugs on all these, but enough of them. Maybe 10% of these had mealybugs on them. For the most part, the problem is, I'd say 90% handled. But that means like you gotta stay on top of it. I can't just stop, right? Yeah, if I had pruned it up properly, probably wouldn't be dealing with this now, but hey, here we are. I think it looks better. Definitely makes me feel better. I'm less paranoid about just introducing mealybugs everywhere in here. I'm going to hold off on watering this in. I'll wait until I have this set on the floor somewhere because I need to top dress this again with some sort of systemic. I'll use a granular. The first time was a liquid soil drench, and well, whatever it was going to get from that, it's gotten from it. Now it's in a new container with fresh soil. I also have some continuous release fertilizer in here. It's the Perfect Palm, which is a 13-5-13 continuous release fertilizer. I just put and it's probably nowhere near enough in the mix. Oh, and this accidentally got pulled out while I was doing things. Somebody will pop that up. That's gonna be cute. Look at it. Tiny little baby palm tree. That's about all there is to it. Not a lot else I can do other than just stay on top of it. I think that this won't be an issue all winter long as it gets that systemic. And I spray it probably once a week with the Captain Jack's Dead Bug. I've been using that. Good stuff. That's this right here. I also really like just using peppermint oil, dish soap, rubbing alcohol, those sorts of things. Work really, really well for contact treatment. But yeah, I don't know. I know systemics, they're pretty unpopular in the plant community, but this mealybug issue I've had for the last 8 years, it really just doesn't resolve unless I step things up. So that's what I started doing this fall, and it is working very well. So there is that. Everything I've had to use the systemics on, the problems have cleared up very quickly. This isn't outside. I'm not going to be watering this into a point where I'm going to have to worry about a lot of runoff, anything like that. I am still going to be careful. It'll be a granular. I think I'm going to be using the Bonide. That's what I have. I have some Bonide systemic that will go as a top dressing when I water this in, and that's I believe a once a month application on that one. I could be wrong. Pretty sure it's once a month. And then, like I said, the spray I'll probably be doing every 7 days. So really just as frequently as I want to, as long as I'm not using something that's so strong that it might burn the soil. So rubbing the foliage, something like rubbing alcohol, that can be harsh on the leaves. So I usually take it easy with that. I like to use a cotton swab to go and just dab the mealybugs when it's just the beginning of a problem. So I usually do with my orchids. I'll just go in and dab them with the rubbing alcohol and then rinse them off. And then sometimes I'll just spray down with some Dawn, just like a few drops in a water bottle. Works really, really well. The more gentle the spray, the more frequently you can use it, right? I mean, I feel like that's fairly self-explanatory. Yeah, there it is. The plant's been repotted, and I think it looks nice. Pretty bare, but I don't really mind when I have to do this. I have to do this pretty much every fall anyways. Every fall and every spring, this plant gets a really big prune, and I enjoy it because it opens things up, and I can see all these cute little trunks. They're looking a mess right now because they were laying on their side in the garden or on the patio where they were getting sprayed, and so that's a lot of mud and muck. But over time, a few waterings, that'll all clear up and be able to see those nice pretty trunks again. So yeah, I gotta get this puppy set over there, give it a nice drink, and then move on to repotting some other things. Probably also should have done this last because now there might be mealybugs in the soil I'm about to use in my other plants. Didn't think about that. I might toss this batch or take it out and just let it sit in the sun for a few days and mix up a new thing of soil. Yeah, all right. Well, hey, here's a nice video on what not to do. Thanks for watching. It was probably a big nothing burger. Sometimes it can help to talk about the mistakes or just when you're dealing with troubles with the plants, and it's just sort of become a tradition. When I prune this thing up really heavily, I usually just do a video on it. I've had it for such a long time. It's been around this channel for, like I said, probably around 7 years or so. So it's nice when you have a big update or a repot. Just go ahead and bring it all along for it. Comment down below, say hi. Hope everybody's doing well, having a great day, great life, and everything's going absolutely beautifully for you. And of course, as always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on. I ran out of things to zoom in on. Keep on growing. Bye bye.